Okay, it's about time for us to get started. So let's go ahead and start off with a word of prayer. Gracious Father in heaven, we give you thanks for this day, this opportunity to be in your word. Lord, we just pray that you would bless our time here together. You send your Holy Spirit upon us, and in all things we may glorify you. Teach us through these scriptures this day. And we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So, if I think right, we're in chapter 2. I believe we didn't make it to verse 8, did we?
What?
Verse 8.
You
did.
You started at
Yes,
verse
we did.
8.
We're on 14.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
we're on
started at
14. Okay.
Yeah.
Faith without works is dead.
Yeah.
Okay. Faith without works is dead. How better to say it than that? That's really what he's going to say. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can the faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacks in daily food, and one of you say to them, "Go in peace, be warmed and filled," without giving them the thing needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. And this is one where oftentimes James gets kind of beat up on. But yet, if you understand it in its full context, this is because what they're trying to do is they're saying, well, he's works righteousness. But what James is trying to get across to us is that it's not works righteousness, it's that the two go in hand. First of all, not that works creates salvation, not that we can get salvation through works, but that the works that are there are a result of the faith that we have in our hearts. Which means that if it's one of those things that, what's a good example? Just trying to think of a good example. To where you can't have one without the other.
Works by themselves does not save you. You can't be saved by
You cannot be saved by the only way. They're actually, and this is one, and you got to be careful with this one. Actually, it can. However, you got to do it absolutely perfectly. Who can do that?
But if you have a true faith, you're going to want to do things for others.
Well, yeah, you are.
Because your faith is a serving faith.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. If you have faith, the others are going to happen. Because remember what Paul says about it. What happens to us? What happens to us in our when we have Christ in us? What happens? We become what?
Christ-like.
Well,
Servants.
One with God.
well, David's getting closer. We're a new creation. Okay, Paul tells us very plainly. He says, in Christ Jesus, we are a new creation. And so if we're a new creation, we're molded in Christ, and that's the Christ-like. Yeah, I'll take one. It's either that or wine.
Oh, I don't have any more. You can go up to the thing.
But you are a new creation. And it's one of those things that if you're a new creation, what you're gonna do is you're gonna put aside the old ways. And what are the old ways? The old ways are, and really if you boil it down, it's really simple. Is the old ways are me, selfish, being self-serving. The new way, the new creation, be Christ-like, means that I am servanthood. I'm living a life of servanthood. So if I'm doing that, if Christ is in me, and also remember too what Paul says. He says, "It is not my righteousness, but it is Christ that's in me." He also says, the things that I want to do, I do not do, and the things that I do not want to do, I do. However, the things that I now do is because what Christ does in me, right? Christ in me is the one that does it. And so if Christ is in me, in other words, if I have faith and Christ is in me, what is going to come out of that? Because if Christ is in me, He does the work, what's going to happen? Only good's going to come out, right? So the sign that Christ is in me is the love that I show to a neighbor. And that. And so that's what really James is trying to get across to us is that, if I go out and I say, I have faith, but then I go and I beat my wife and I yell at my dog and I throw stones at my neighbor, then is Christ really in me?
Is that an example you don't have faith?
Well, it is. Well, it's exactly what it is. I mean, that's the converse.
Very weak one, yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point.
Well, well, the problem is if Christ is the one that's doing it in our life, and it's always this thing that we're trying to live a life of what we call sanctification. We got to be careful with that because in the world today, they teach the sanctification that's taught in a lot of the churches out there is what's called a stair-step sanctification. Think of it this way: perfection is up at the top of the stair, right? And so I'm continually going up the steps. And every day I get up and I do a good job, I'm taking a step up, up the step. And I keep getting closer and closer and closer to that sanctification, to perfection, right?
Except that.
Our problem.
Yeah,
Except that, you go up that rung, you go back 5.
Yeah, exactly.
You go up
See, our
that-
problem-
back to that rung and you go back 3.
Our problem is that there's a squeaky toy on there. When we step on it, we fall backwards. That's the thing about it is that we do fall backwards because the thing about it is though is that and you've heard me talk about this before. Is that one day, and Alan, look, there's Alan, he's over here.
Oh, I'm sorting you out.
So Alan gets up, Alan gets up in the middle, one day and he goes and he says, "Oh, Lois, everything," and he goes and he, he gives her a kiss on the forehead and make sure she's got everything that she needs and all that kind of stuff. And the next day,
A day in the life of the porterhouse.
and then the next day, he actually gives her, he wakes up in the morning early and fixes her breakfast in bed and gives her a kiss on the forehead. And they don't have a dog, but we're gonna say that they have a dog. Pats the dog on the, well, and then the third day, he gets up and he yells at Lois, he kicks the dog, he slams out the door. The reality of it is for all of us, that is the truth of our life. We have our good days and we have our bad days, right? Huh?
Better not be kicking the dog. Don't like snail
But okay, let's just say he doesn't kick the dog, but he thinks about it. Okay. But here's the thing is that the thing that we always got to remember, the way that we as Lutherans look at our sanctification is it's more of a pendulum. Because we're swinging back and forth between saint and sinner every day, right?
Every minute.
Every minute. It can be every second of the day that we're doing. 1 second we're thinking that you know, that rascal, and in the next minute I'm loving somebody. And so, you know, that the thing about it is though, is that really our sanctification is more of a pendulum than it is a stair step. Because what they call it, their fancy word is progressive justification. Every day that I've got Christ in me, I'm a better person. The reality of it is that that's not true. The reality of it is that we're not necessarily better people every day. Sometimes we give in to our temptation, we give in to our sin. Yes, Deb?
Well, I was, watching, an interview with, it was a comedian, he's a conservative from he lives in Los Angeles, and they were talking about how bad the homelessness is there,
Mhm.
and how you walk down the streets of downtown Los Angeles, and there's, you know, syringes.
The
Yeah.
drugs.
Yeah, and it's really bad. And the interviewer said, well, why is that? And he said, well, they went on and on, but he said, basically, to be perfectly honest, the people would be more upset if these people were dogs, were homeless dogs,
Yeah.
than
You're
these
right.
homeless people. He said, there's no real humanity, and even the cops don't care because those people don't have money. So it doesn't pay them to arrest them or anything. He said, you know, but on the other side of the street, a BMW goes by or a Lexus and they're 10 miles over the speed limit, they're gonna pull them over and give them a speeding ticket because there's money there.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily, I'd be
We
careful
know
of
some
blaming
of
the
that's
police
the
officers,
Yeah.
because the police officers can only enforce what,
Picked up
They see.
what they do, that one
yeah.
took off his own socks and put them
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah,
job.
Well, they
yeah.
changed the law
can't
there.
put-
But
so
the problem with
police
it
can't
is
even
that,
arrest them for
the problem with
That's
those
why,
things,
because there's no money.
but see, the thing about it is here's the real question, here's the real question when it comes down to it. Are they really loving those people?
No.
No. Because if they did, they would do things that would help them out of that situation of poverty and drug addiction. But yet we're going down the way of a country that's legalizing more of these drugs and making them more readily available. In fact, I was just listening on Friday, one of the governors was a needle exchange thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's like that, but what is? I don't wanna judge it, we gotta be careful not to judge, because there might be some underlying thing with it,
Mhm.
where what he wants to do is he wants to kinda get an inventory of these people, so
Mhm.
that he can then start a helping program. But typically, government doesn't do that, but it really isn't that case, but it still comes down to it is that what we've gotta do is, yeah, it's sad when we see those kind of things, especially in this country, because, there really are two things that bring us to that point. And in essence, these are exactly what we're talking about, is that, we're seeing a country, we're seeing communities where there's a lack of faith. And in here, there's a lack of faith in that community. Why? Because if faith was there, what would the desire be for these people that are homeless?
They help.
To help them, not to let them, it's not helpful letting them sleep on the streets. That's not healthy for anybody. It's not
It's not
healthy.
helpful to give them money on the corner either.
It's not helpful to give them money on the corner. It's not helpful to do that. It's helpful to give them purpose in their life and help them to live out of the squalor that they're in.
Well, you know, there's so many people that are against, you have these no-kill drug shelters, which are great, and they're all up in arms, about abuse of dog, and I get it, I'm a dog and cat person, I'm an animal person, but they have it skewed, because on the one hand, the late-term abortions, they don't think anything of that, but yet or killing a baby after it's born if the intent was to abort. And on the other hand, they're saying, oh, no, we can't kill these dogs and cats.
Well, in essence, it's gonna be one of the things I'm talking about in my sermon
Oh,
today, is not specifically that topic, but it's the underlying thing. And it's the fact that we all have little Pharisees inside of us. And the problem is that when you've got somebody that has more affection for the animals, than you do for the people. And they'll help the people, but then they see it, that's the pharisaical side coming out. But the thing about it is, though, is that here's what God says is really important. That what we do is we take care of the people, and we take care of the animals. We are good stewards of that which God has has given us. Because let's face it, most of us have animals, and we love our animals. Even the animals that were, here's the thing about it is, it's really cool because we had a discussion, I was discussing it with somebody, I don't remember who it was, and we were talking about the thing that came out by Paul Harvey about farmers. And the fact that, on the sixth day, God looked and said, we need somebody to tend and care and do all this, and he says, the farmers. The reality of it is that while you might get one that's here or there, that's a rogue, most of the farmers, even though they know that the cows or whatever are going to go to slaughter or something, or the pigs are going to, the farmers care about their animals.
I don't think you can equate people like your dog analogy. Animals have no choice. People have choices.
Right.
Yeah.
A stray dog has no choice that he's a stray dog.
Yeah.
A person that takes drugs chose to take
Yeah.
drugs.
But once
it
they're
is.
addicted though.
They
they're-
still
they're
chose it to
hopeless.
begin with.
Yeah, they
Oh,
chose it
okay,
initially.
all right, okay, yeah, we can get into a long thing about this, but the reality of it is that however they got down there, and she's right, I mean, they're right, they're making choices.
Right.
But the thing about it is that sometimes we think we have choices that we really don't have. And part of this comes out of, 20 years ago when we were telling our kids, you have choices, make the right choices. But the thing about it is, though, is that some things aren't a choice. I know Judy talks about the fact when they were kids that who was it? It's your nephew.
Our son.
Oh, your son. Yeah, when you said, I didn't know that I had a choice to go to church or not. Even though the world says we have a choice, there are some things that we really don't have a choice. We really don't have a choice not to be in church. We really don't have a choice. We think we do, but the thing about it is, though, is we're really not choosing whether we're going to church or not. What we're doing is we're choosing we're choosing life and death. And we think the choices that we have are what it is. But the thing about it is there are a lot of things that do go into this, but the compassionate thing and the loving thing for us to do is realize that the loving thing comes out of Christ. And the loving thing isn't the easy thing, and the loving thing isn't to let them stay there.
How many people are out spreading the word to them, though, to try to make them see that God cares about them and there is another...
And see, that's what I'm saying, is the lack of it, it's the lack of people.
They need to do that, not
They need to
give
do
them
that.
safe places to
Because
do
the only
drugs.
one that can take them, you gotta realize this, addictions, drug abuse and addictions, whatever choice took them down that path, they're now, this is the reality of sin. Sin makes us a slave, okay? And whatever the issue, it doesn't matter whether it's drug abuse, whether it's whatever the sin of vogue that we have. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what our sin of vogue is it takes us down the same thing, because what can happen is if we don't live by faith and we allow the temptation to come, then what's going to happen is we are going to be enslaved by that temptation. And that's what happens with them. And the problem is the most compassionate thing to do for those type of people, and people that do that, is called hard Christian love. And the only one that can give them the power to really resist it is God.
Right.
Is God is the only one that has the power. Why? What do we see in today's lesson? It's the temptation of Christ. Because the reality of it is that all of us fall to sin. you know, we come down here and we look at it and we say, Karen, you know, Satan, and pretend like I'm Satan, Karen, oh, I know Karen, I know her real well, you know? Yeah, we get together every once in a while, we talk, right? Satan does it. You would think, oh, you know, nice innocent Karen over there. But the reality of it is we gotta realize that Satan comes with his horns and everything, his slick, actually, look, folks, oh, look at this. It's kinda like when we were in Cancun, they had these gorgeous, gorgeous looking desserts. But then when you eat them after a while, it's like, there's no substance there. I want cake, you know, I want some cake.
I'm so hungry.
And it's all Jell-O filled with flavor, you know? But that in essence is it, and that's what he does. He comes to each one of us and he sits down with us and says, yeah, I know Karen, she's my buddy. You know, we talk every once in a while. Yeah, sometimes we even do a few things together. You know, I know her, I know what she likes. Yeah, I know.
Do you know what you like?
You know, and I guarantee you, if we pull Ken over to the side, he could probably share with us what some of those things are. But the reality of it is that's how Satan works. And we all have those temptations. It doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter who we are, even as pastors and that. Satan works on us, just like he works on Jesus. I mean, the thing about it is, and I don't say this in this particular sermon, but the thing about it is, though, is that, think about it this way. One of the temptations is he takes Jesus up and he puts him up on a high mountain and he says, look at all of these kingdoms out there. Look at them all. Look at them in all their glory. I'll give them to you if you bow down to me.
He doesn't have to give.
Well, actually he does, because he's the king of these world. But the problem is that he has nothing that doesn't belong to God.
That's what I mean, he can't,
He can't give them.
I mean,
He just
yeah,
thinks
he's
he's in
the king of our world,
Yeah.
but,
But see, that's the essence
I
of
mean,
temptation,
Jesus is
though, isn't
already
it?
there.
See, that's the essence of temptation. Satan doesn't have anything to give us. But yet he promises us an awful lot, doesn't he?
Father of lies.
That's right. That's right. Because really, all good things come from whom? God. We just read that. See, that's why we've got to always connect James together. Yes, because James was the one that told us all good things come from God, right? And so if all good things come from God, then, you know, when Satan comes offering, selling us a bill of goods, what he's really doing, think of it this way, he's selling us swampland in Florida, right? He's got a bridge that he wants to sell you. You know, all those old adages, you know, those things. That's what he's doing, because he doesn't have anything to give. God is the one that owns all things. And he's the one that gives. He's the one that richly provides. And he does that both to the believer and the unbeliever. That's where the extent of God's love is just for the believer and the unbeliever. And so when we look at this, and so really the reality of it is that the only one that, because Christ is the only one that can resist temptation, the only thing that we can do is have Christ in us resisting temptation. And that's the thing. But, you know, both of you are right on this, and the whole thing is it is a tragedy. But the thing about it is, though, is that if we really truly listen to God, what are we going to take care of it? It isn't a division between our animals and and people. It's both. We love both. We may love them in different ways, but we do love our animals. We do take care of our animals. Why? Because God gave us dominion over the earth, and he says take care of it. And we take care of people. Why? Because those are precious to God. That's what gathering treasures in heaven is all about. It's helping people to go away from Satan and to live in Christ. And that's what we can help do. And so that's the thing. And the problem with government, when we abdicate our role to government, all we're simply doing is, because government can only throw money in it. Government has no compassion. They are systems. And when you put somebody in a system, it's cookie cutter, everything is the same way, doesn't matter. And so governments can't have compassion, the only one that has compassion are people, us, individuals. That's why God didn't come to us and say, give your money to the government so that they can help the poor. No, he says, you go help. Why? Because who's working? Christ is at work. Because if he's at work in your heart, he is the one moving you. And those are the works that happen because Christ. See, that's the whole thing about it is, and I don't think James fully gets to it, but he's trying to get it over another point. But the thing about it is what he has to say is this. This is the reason that if there is faith there, why there has to be works there is because Christ is working. If there's faith, Christ is working, so you have to see the result. That's not me, it's Christ. So that's where he's going to.
Do you think there are any church groups that go out and try to reach these people?
There are.
Other
Well, I
than,
know, right here,
There are, but they're
The Redeemer
limited.
Crisis Center is one of those that's trying to help.
There are those
that area.
places,
It's like
there
we're
are the
donating to
places, but the
them.
government is making it harder and harder to do. The problem is the government gets in the way a lot of times.
yeah, like right now in California, they're trying to pass something to pay people not to take meth. You think
Oh,
that's
my
gonna work?
goodness.
Yeah, that was,
They'll take the money and go
That-
to that.
you would think like church people would go out, yeah, throw money in. I mean, people from churches themselves going out and talking to them, or is it all, we have a crisis center here if you wanna come here? That doesn't usually work either.
You'll find out that the people in the crisis centers work very, very hard. Redeemer Crisis Center here they work very, very hard to affect the families, and they can't do it all. But the thing about it is, though, is they work very, very hard, and they do it. It is a mission of love because the money that they get paid to do this stuff is very, very small.
But do the people have to go there? I mean, go out to the
No.
people, not have them
No,
come to
they
the
actually go out into the community.
Oh, well,
They do.
that's what they need more
And there are
of, not
people,
money.
the problem is, yeah, that's what they need
Yeah.
more. The problem is that the government has the same solution to everything, throw more money.
Yeah.
With the money.
It's like, okay, this is broken, throw more
Yeah,
money in.
yeah.
And, it's the thing that we hear, well, we need more schools, throw more money in. Well, kids aren't getting good enough grades, throw more money in. We've got a problem, throw more money in. The problem is more money doesn't
By
mean,
itself.
by itself isn't gonna do it. The problem is that you've got to have the compassion. It really is, in essence, that's one of the reasons why we support and help with Love Inc. Because Love Inc. is not about just simply throwing money at things. What it is about the iceberg. It's about, and everybody knows the thing about icebergs. Where's the biggest part of the iceberg? Under the water. When Titanic sank, it was because you hit what was under the water, not what was above, okay? And that's what did the damage, that's what sank it. That's what sank it, is the and the problem is what we see in human behavior is only the tip of the iceberg. But what we've gotta do is say, why is it that this person continues every month to come to me and need gas money to pay for their gas bill? Why is it that every time, that they keep going back to drugs? Why is it? And really, drugs is all about hopelessness. The reason that people get into drugs is, that it may not be what takes them down, but eventually it becomes a situation of hopelessness. And the problem is that money does not bring hope. Money does not bring hope. If it was, then why do we have people like Kate Spade or Robin Williams or those people? If money was really that, why do they commit suicide? And why? Actually, the thing about it is that right now most people probably aren't there. One of the things I like to do is just to kind of keep up on it is that on the landing page they'll have all kinds of different stories, but one of the stories is always stars we have lost, or famous people we have lost in this year. Because I like to just kind of see, that kind of thing. And if you look at a site like that, what you end up seeing is, all of a sudden you see 25-year-old, 30-year-olds dying. I mean, these are people, one of them that died this past month was a star. He's not a child, but he's a young person that's a star at Disney, on Disney Channel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that.
I thought Disney was all about
Disney's all
dreams
about
and family and all that. The
It's
problem,
that's just the route they take.
the problem with it is that every time that you read it, I almost know. I mean, every once in a while you'll see somebody that's battling cancer or something like that. But for the most part, 90%, I'd say 95% of the young people under the age of 50 that die, it's a drug overdose. If money brings hope, then why are so many people dying? And that's the thing about it is what we as Christians bring to people is we bring hope. Because what happens is that the truth of Christ is the only thing that can free them from the slavery of addictions, any kind of addictions. It doesn't matter which one it is, okay? And so that's what we have.
Elvis is a good example of that.
Yeah,
He
Elvis
started
was a
his
good-
Christmas gospel
Oh, yeah,
church boy and ended up,
ended up just like it.
so the money, what did that
It's the
do?
money. It brought in temptation.
Yeah,
is really what it
church
did.
brought in more than that money did.
Oh, it did. But someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that God is one, you do well. Even the demons believe and shudder. Do you want to be shown, you foolish person, that faith apart from works is useless? Was not Abraham, our father, justified by works when he offered up his son on the altar? Let's just stop it right there. Why? Why is the work that he's doing when he was sacrificing Isaac, why does he say that that is a work? Because in order for him to sacrifice Isaac, he had to have a lot of faith. I mean, think about it. To sacrifice your child, the death of a child to a parent is one of the absolute worst things that can happen in this world. It is a devastating thing, and you never get over it. And so for Abraham to be willing to do that work, he had to have a lot of faith in God. He had to have an awful lot of faith in God. And that's the thing about it is that we all have to have that faith. And so that's what he's saying here is he says, if you say you have faith but there's no works, I'm going to show you that you don't. But if you have works, let me show you that you can have faith. Now that we got to be careful with that we don't just automatically say when somebody does something that's civil righteous, that's out of faith. There'll be some of them, they'll tell you that it's not out of faith. I hate doing it, but Ted Turner is a perfect example of that. He gave $1 million to a charity. But he'll tell you it wasn't because he's a devout atheist. The reason that he did it was because he wanted to keep up with Bill Gates and I don't remember, was it Warren Buffett or it was one of the other big money guys. But they gave $1 million, so he said, well, I want some of this limelight, I'm gonna give $1 million. And so sometimes what we consider to be good works are not good works. Because there's the reality. Only good works can happen in faith. And so when we look at the sacrifice of Isaac, what he's showing there is he's really showing a picture of faith. That Abraham trusted God so much, and he knew that God was going to bring salvation to him, that he was willing to go through with it, because he knew that God, in a way, and that's a hard faith to have. In fact, you know, we find it difficult, don't we? Trust God. You know where the first place we see it is? And I don't know what people give in that. What is the amount that God says that we should give?
10%
10%
of the first.
of our first fruits. First fruits, 10%. First squeezings. Okay? We talked about that Wednesday. First squeezings, the best. We're supposed to give the first fruits. Okay? The problem with it is that so many people don't, when they budget, they don't start their budget with Jesus. What they do is they give Jesus the last fruits, whatever's left. And they say, well, you know, I just don't have enough. Well, the problem with it is, though, is that, are you really trusting in God? Because what happens is that sometimes that is a real area that sometimes we can use as our own guide or measure. How's my giving compared to my faith? Am I trusting God? Because here's the reality of it is, most of us here are over the age of 50, right? Getting close to it, some of us. All right? We made it 50 years okay, right? Still here? They still got clothes on their back? Still got enough food in their belly? Most of the time, right? Huh?
And a roof over our head.
Got a roof over your head? Got a car to drive? You see, the reality of it is that some of us worry way too much, and we don't trust in God. And that's really the biggest problem with giving. Is giving is it is a measure of faith. It is a work. We don't earn our salvation by what we put in the plate. But what we do is that what we do is it can be our own measure of faith. Is my faith, and not from the standpoint, I understand things sometimes are difficult and things are that, but and God really doesn't say 10% or you're cut off, right? But what He wants you to do is give from the heart. And so the measure that we have to ask is, am I doing enough? Am I really loving God in the way that I should? Am I trusting in God? And that's first commandment stuff, right? That's first commandment. We should fear, love God, fear, love, and trust in God above all things. Right? Where are we putting the trust? In the money or in God? Because I guarantee you, money situations can change like that. Okay? How many of you have seen what the stock market's done?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to miss.
You know? I mean, I'll be honest with you. The reality of it is, and I'm managing my mom's account. I made more money this week than you would care to. Well, I mean, yeah, it's not. I mean, I made more money in her account this week than what she did in the last 3 years, and she'll make more.
But we need to
But the thing
remember
about it
too, when
is-
you look at that what, 1 or 2 or 3 months ago, where it is right now was a record high.
Yeah.
So it's bad,
But the
but
thing
it's
about it
not
is, though,
devastating.
no,
I
I mean, this
the
is a
second
farce.
day,
But see, that's the thing about it is, though, is when we stop, the whole purpose of that is not to show that we were able to do it, but it's like this, that when we stop panicking and we trust in God, what can you do? You can do an awful lot of things.
well,
I
they
mean,
were
it's one of
talking
those
the
things.
second day that we were gonna have a recession. I'm like, what?
Well, the problem is, here's the reality of it is that if we can lose that much in the stock market, if we can lose that much in the stock market just because the fear, remember, what's controlling this? Fear. What is fear? Fear is there's a lack of trust. And when we don't trust in God, the reality of, I mean, here's the reality of it. Let's be doomsdayers, okay? If you really want to think about this, what happens if there was a nuclear war that broke out between us and China? Would the size of your bank account matter? Absolutely. We've seen it. We've seen it. World War I. What happened to the Deutschmark? Or the Kaisermark. It was the Kaisermark. What happened to the Kaisermark?
Way down.
Way down.
Way.
Way down.
Wheelbarrow full of money.
Right.
to
My
buy that.
great-great-great-grandfather was actually a millionaire during World War I. Lost every penny of it. That's why I brought him to the United States. Every penny of it. Well, let's take a look at one of our beloved things that we like to see come Easter time, because it always plays on TV. Sound of Music, right? The Von Trapps.
Yep.
Very wealthy, very prestigious in Austria, right? Lost it all, right?
Yep.
You see, the thing about it is the tide of human events can cause those things to change. We can't trust in money because all it is I don't think I even have any in my pocket. No, I actually do. You know, it's probably the biggest bill that I've ever had, but what is it? It's paper, right?
It's not
paper.
even based on anything.
It's not based on anything.
It used to be based on gold.
Okay? My wife was teasing her recent Titanic, because Titanic was on TV last night. And then you remember Molly Brown sitting there talking about when she came home and her husband, she had hid the money that they made in the stove, and he lit the stove and it all burned up. That's a true story. They made two fortunes. One was in oil and one was in gold or something. But the thing about it is, though, one of his fortunes, he burned half his money up because he hid it in the stove and he lit a fire.
She hid it,
Huh?
she hid it in the stove and he lit it.
He lit the fire. But see, that's the thing. In fact, what does God tell us? What is one of our texts that we have, that we hear of, I think was it last week our text was? It says, why do you gather up things that the moths can eat and will rust? You see, the thing about it is, though, it's just the same thing here. I mean, we want to think that we're the greatest country in the world, but you know what? We're a country. We're a country.
Owned by Russia, or owned by China.
We're owned by the world, actually. Nobody, I mean, the thing about it is, everybody owns us. And we own everybody else. That's the problem. But the problem with it is it doesn't matter. That's why David tells us. He tells us this, very simple. He says, God is your refuge and strength and ever-present help in time of trouble, even though the mountains give way and fall into the heart of the sea. We kind of got a glimpse of that this week, didn't we? Right? The world's falling apart. We've got a pandemic. Everybody's going to get sick and die. Right? That's what we're hearing. If that truly was the case, does it matter how much money you got in the bank? Actually, here's the reality of it is that even if it's not a worldwide event, if you get cancer and are facing death, does the amount of money you have really matter? Especially if it's like pancreatic cancer, right? Or another one that's like that. What if you have an inoperable valve that's going bad in your heart? They can't operate on it. What's going to happen? You're going to die. And see, that's the reality of it. And I don't care how much money you got in the bank. I don't care how many sports cars you have. I don't care what you have. I don't care what kind of connections you have. I don't care who you know. The only relationship that really counts in that is the relationship between you and Jesus Christ. You and God. That's the only one. Because there's nothing else that's there. And so the truth of it is this. Even though the mountains give way and fall into the heart of the sea, Even though the waves churn and the sea churns, God's there. He is your port in that storm. He is your safe harbor in that storm. And that's the thing that we've always got to take, is that no matter what it is, no matter how bad we're feeling in that, money isn't going to do anything. Money is here, there, and gone. You know? It's when we panic, and the problem is this world has a tendency to panic. And when we start panicking about things, what do? We lose control. But that's what Satan wants us to do. Why? Why does he want us to panic? He wants the power, because we're not trusting in God. We're not trusting in God. In fact, we remember what he tells us. He tells us this. He says, take a look. You know, we'll open the curtain. Everybody's out the curtain, right? Look at the nice sunshine out there. I don't see a bird, but usually you see birds out there sitting in that. But what about the bushes that are out here? And even though there's some snow on the ground, and even though we got David Soy walking in. When we look out the window, look at those trees back there. You know, when we bought this property and they built, I've seen pictures of it. You know, there wasn't a tree back there. It was grass, all grass. In fact, it was dirt after they started building this. But yeah, look at those trees. And you know, if the snow wasn't out there, we might see a flower bud. What does he say? Take a look at the lilies of the valley. And if I clothe them so beautifully, these lilies that are going to be here, and you know what lilies last, in my household they last probably about a whole sum of a week. My wife and I, we kill them, you know. But you know, you can make them last for a couple of weeks or 3 weeks. They're here today and gone tomorrow, right? Even though they're here today, gone tomorrow, and he makes them so beautiful. I mean, take a look at the flowers we have always up at the front of the church. They always add so much to our worship service, don't they? The beautiful flowers. Even though we know that they're already dead, right? We've cut them. We've cut them off from the branch. They're dead, okay? But yet, but the thing about it is, though, is that no matter what, though, those flowers, even though they're here today and gone tomorrow, how beautiful they are, how much more is God going to take care of you? How much more is God going to array you? Take a look at the birds out there. They don't go worrying. I don't get them knocking on the door. Pastor, I'm worried. I need. He just knows that they go out. They're going to find a worm if they're looking for one, right? Sorry for the worm, but you know, it doesn't matter. Is that God provides. And so a lot of this comes really down to trust. Even the whole thing about it is, even though the whole thing in which he's saying is that trust is a work, believe it or not, trust is a work that we do that flows out of faith. Why? Because the one that leads us to that faith is the Holy Spirit, and the one that leads us to trust in God is the Holy Spirit. And that's why when we don't trust in God, what are we doing? We're breaking all the commandments. In fact, I got thinking about that as I was reading this. You know, when someone say to you, you have faith and I have works, show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that God is one, you do well, even if demons believe and shudder. Do you want to be shown, you foolish person, that faith apart from works is useless? You know, the thing about it is that James brings out the fact that that even the demons know and understand this. But that's exactly why Satan does it. He doesn't like the fact that even his followers know that Satan isn't really the leader. But they follow him for some reason. But they know, when they see Jesus, they shut. Okay? Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him as righteousness, and he was called a friend of God. You see that a person is justified by works, and not by faith alone. And in the same way was not also Rahab, the prostitute, justified by works, when she received the messenger, and sent them out by another way? Whereas the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead. So what he's saying is that really, if you really understand it in this way, the works shows us that faith is alive. The works show. Why? It all comes down to the Holy Spirit. Whereas the body apart from the spirit is dead. That really is a profound statement. Why? Because what is physical death? It's the separation of body and soul. Right? Physical death is separation of body and soul. Okay?
And also people that somebody says at their funeral, oh, they were such a good person, but because they did so many wonderful things, but if they had no faith, they're still dead too.
They're still dead too. And that's where I look at it. If they were so wonderful, why are they in the box? Really?
So their good deeds meant nothing.
Their good
They had
deeds
no
mean
faith.
nothing. Yeah, it means nothing. It meant nothing. Good deeds outside of faith mean nothing. But yet, it's right there. And here's the reality of it. Is the thing about it is where he eventually gets to where other scripture we understand it. What he's trying to do is show us the connection between works and the Holy Spirit. Okay? He's showing us that there is that relationship there with the Holy Spirit. So in physical death, if it's a separation of body and spirit, what is it in eternal death? It is separation of the person from the Holy Spirit. Right? Because the Holy Spirit's the one that builds faith, and faith is what brings works. And we see that faith is there by works. It's like if somebody comes to me and says, well, remember the guy that was he was supposedly this upright guy, he was head of the church at some Lutheran church, I don't remember what Lutheran church it was, but he was, he was head elder. And yet he was a murderer. He went out and killed somebody. He murdered people.
Before or after the,
No? Wow.
oh, wow.
Wow.
I don't think it was
So is he a believer?
probably not.
Probably not. Probably not. Did he have faith? Probably not. We gotta be careful not to judge. I mean, the fact that he was kind of a serial killer, I think he killed like 2 or 3 people, more, not all at the same time. But the thing about it is, though, is that if you looked at him, you saw that there were works there, but was there faith? So you can't always do that. It really still comes down to faith. And the thing about it is, because you look at his true works were not that of a believer. And so out of that, you can probably tell it. Now, we gotta be careful though, he did fall into temptation, just like, can he be redeemed? Yes. He can. He can be redeemed. Where do we see that? King David, right? Isn't that what happened to King David? And he got into a sort of business there, didn't he? He started off, he was loved by God, he loved God and everything, and man, his eye got caught the eye of Bathsheba. He was a peeping Tom, right? Saw Bathsheba in the bath, taking a bath one day through his window. Decided that he wanted her. They had an affair while her husband was off fighting the war, right? And then what did he do?
Had him killed him.
He put him up on the front lines, gave him a duty that was almost certain to get him killed. Got him killed.
So he was a murderer.
He was a murderer. But are we all? That's the thing of it is. I mean, the sermon I had a couple weeks ago. Aren't we all? You're all murderers at heart. But the thing about it is, though, is that what did he do? He repented of that sin, and God, who is faithful and just, will forgive the sin. So nobody is beyond repentance, but that's that relationship with God. That's why we always look at the fact, and I always remind you that we're sinners, we're tempted all the time. That, just like I was saying with that, many times, when I was talking about Karen over there, is that many times we walk with Satan. We walk with him. We sit down with him. Sitting in the chair next to us in our living room. Because that's the thing, is we're enticed by his beauty. But yet, God does it. So, that is. All right, taming of the tongue. We got 5 minutes here. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with great strictness. Ha! Maybe somebody should tell some people out there in this world, especially when it comes to the office of the holy ministry. Not all of us should be teachers. If you can't keep God's commands and you can't keep them in a way that's not pharisaical, you should not be a teacher. Doesn't mean you're perfect. But remember, the error that you teach, others are going to experience. The heresy that you teach, others are going to pay the consequence for. When I have somebody that comes and talks to me about becoming a pastor, the very first thing I ask them to do is to tell me why they shouldn't be. The best thing I can do is talk them out of it. Because the thing about it is you're held, and that's not to toot my own horn, but it's to make sure that they are prepared. Because if I can't talk them out of it, or better yet, if they can't just know in their heart that this is absolutely what God is calling them to do, and they understand the responsibility of it. It's like I like Footloose. Even though that, and now you understand his political views and everything, he's totally against that character, but he played the character well, the dad, in Footloose. He looked at his congregation and he says, I'm gonna make sure you all understand this word. Why? Because when I'm standing in heaven, God's gonna hold me accountable for each and every one of you. Huh?
You're in trouble.
I know, I'm in trouble. It's only by the grace of God, But that's the reality. As a pastor of this congregation, God's given me the responsibility of your souls. And so that's why I don't have a problem calling you a bunch of sinners. Right? I don't have a problem with that. It's tough love, people. That's what it is. Is that the reason that I do, and I remind you of that, is because the one important thing that you need to know is Jesus Christ. And you need to know his love and his faith. I'm not going to whitewash it for you. I'm not going to tell you that you're, poor little thing, you're good, go out there. No, you're not. And I can prove that. Just wait till your funeral. You're going to be in a box like everybody else. That sounds harsh. And it's like, oh, Pastor, don't say that thing. Oh, don't say stuff. I don't want to hear stuff like that. Well, you may not want to hear it, but you need to hear it. Because the reality of it is that we will all face that one day. We will not only face it for ourselves, but we will also face it for some of our loved ones. And the reality of it is this, is that we need to know that because that's what tells us that we're sick and we need medicine. We need our Savior. And by understanding that I'm not going to pat, we do some good things, but at the same time, we're not going to pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, we got this covered. Because we don't. Jesus has got this covered. And he reminds us every Sunday with his blood. This morning was an early service. Next week it'll be a late service. He's got us covered with his blood. And that's the thing that we have to understand. And that's the most important thing for us to understand. And so not everybody should be a teacher. If you want to give up and you want your opinions to be made known, and believe me, I've heard people say, I want to get up there and preach because I think I can do a really good job. Okay, maybe you can talk. Maybe you're more eloquent than I am. I'll take Paul's part in it. I may not be the most eloquent of tongue. I know that especially if I don't have my glasses on or it gets too dark out there, the lights aren't on enough, I miss words. You know what? It's okay. But the sincerity of what I teach you, the message that I bring you, is from the Holy Spirit. It's not my words. It's not my doctrines. It's not my teachings. It's the teachings of Jesus Christ. All I am is a messenger. If you're wanting to get into this job because you want your ideas to be out there, this is the wrong place. Because you're playing with fire. Because not all people should be. Was not Abraham our father? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping down. For you know that we who teach will be judged at greater strictness. For we all stumble in many ways. That's what I said, right? We all stumble. Doesn't matter. I'm not perfect. Close to it, but not perfect. Had to put that in there. No.
Well, I was speaking up because your wife's not here.
Oh, okay, you're her
Yeah.
advocate.
Yes, I'm her advocate.
Okay. And if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. Oh, gosh, like that, I have to make a mistake every once in a while. Yeah, I have to, for your benefit.
I know.
I do. So if I make a mistake, it's for your good,
There you go.
right?
So we can learn from it.
Super pain.
Well, what does he say right here? It says, if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man. And I keep telling you, none of us are perfect. So if I show that I'm perfect, then you're not going to believe what the scriptures say, right?
Right.
So I have to stumble in order for you to believe what I say, right? So if I say I'm not perfect, I have to stumble. And you have to see it so that you know that what I'm teaching is true.
Well, I think you have to do that too to show compassion.
You have to be sincere. Really, the truth about being a pastor or a teacher, and it doesn't matter. I use pastor because we're the highest level of the teacher in the church, but there are other teachers. Our Sunday school teachers, our Bible study teachers,
Parents.
our parents. Parents are teachers. All of us are teachers. And see, that's something that parents a lot of times should think about today. Is that they are teachers and they are going to be held to a higher standard. And those are the things we need to look at. The parent that says, oh, I just want to be my kid's friend. You're not your kid's friend until after they're out of the house. Huh?
It doesn't know favors.
Yeah, doesn't know favors at all. You're not their friend until they're out of the house. And still, you're still not their friend.
No.
You have a close relationship.
Right.
You're still mom or dad, right?
Yep.
You're still their parent. And there's still times when you go to them, I don't think that's the best thing for you to do. It's okay. I mean, the great thing about our kids are, especially in this day and age, is we can go and we can go on vacations and we can have conversations and we can have wonderful relationships. But you're still not their friend.
Right.
You still have things that they don't stop learning when they're 21.
Or 44.
Huh? Or 44.
Or 65.
Or 58.
Right.
Or in your 60s or 70s. Or even 80s. I remember there was this cute, oh, I gotta get down, I'll finish up on this real quick, let me finish it up real quick. There was these cute little old ladies and the one lady we would go to and we would sit down with her and we would talk to her and everything. She was 83 or 84 years old. Well, she was telling us one day that her mom was getting mad at her and yelling at her because she did something wrong. Because she did, her mom didn't like what she was doing. They both lived in the same nursing home. The mother was 90 some odd and everything. It was really funny. And shortly after that, her mom died. But it was a cute little black lady. And it was just, they were just so wonderful. And it was really funny the way that they did it because the daughter would say, "Oh, Mom, she's getting on me again," you know. So, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace.